We have a beautiful movie today, and the name of the movie is called Violet. And the writer of the movie and the director of the movie is Justine Bateman. Some of you might have recognized her from many years ago. When I was in university, there was a show on TV called Family Ties with Michael J. Fox, and Justine Bateman played his sister, his teenage sister. And now she's not only a writer, a producer, an actress, but now a director. This is her first film she's directing. And I would have to say that you could really feel her heart. The purpose of making this movie was for helping people with their mental health. And I think it's nice. You know, a lot of times we see movies, and movies are made with the purpose of entertainment. But I think for those of us that are on the spiritual journey, we do enjoy movies that are psychological. We do enjoy movies that help us get into the thinking of the character, as well as what seems to be the appearance of the character and the environment. As Pete was mentioning, there's text that comes up on the screen. This is fantastic because these are kind of like the white text that appears kind of in bold letters during the movie is going to be like her main, Violet's unconscious desires. But I would say from a spiritual perspective, these white letters are the little nudges from her intuition, from the spirit. These are the little prompts that want to come through but are not acted on, but are there with her scene by scene as she goes through her life. So you can see the spirit is wanting to break through. The spirit is that nudge that you have inside that really knows your own best interest in every single setting, in every single relationship, every single situation. There are these inner prompts that want to come through. Now, we all know that having gone through this earth experience, we're on a seeming journey from between birth and death, that we at times have very much critical thinking, self-critical thinking, thoughts of unworthiness, doubt thoughts, we call them sometimes, you know, that negative, dark voice in your mind. And I would say that people have different experiences with it. Some people come to this world, they seem to have very loving parents that nurture them and prepare them to handle whatever the world will seem to throw to them. And others have very dark experiences in childhood and during their teen years and early adulthood, where they have a lot of reflections and witnesses of guilt and shame, of blame, of criticism, and all kinds of judgments. And for those of us who have come through that route, we know how difficult it can seem to be when you have a self-critical voice that's just doubting you. It's doubting you all the time. It certainly seems to generate stress. It generates anxiety. It generates fear and guilt. And for those of us on the spiritual journey, we know that that's our whole purpose, is to transcend that voice of the ego and learn to tune in to the voice of the spirit, the voice of intuition. And in the Course in Miracles, we could say it's Jesus or the Holy Spirit. And Jesus is an example for us of one who heard only one voice. He told us in the Bible, he says, be of good cheer. Whenever Jesus starts off with, be of good cheer, there's something good coming. And be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. Meaning I have overcome the voice that made the world. I have overcome the ego. I have overcome Satan. I have overcome the darkness. And I now know that light is all that there is, and that our nature is love, and the kingdom of heaven is real. In fact, it's so real that nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists. So this beautiful intuitive voice is teaching us and reminding us all the time that who we really are is light, is pure spirit. I like it when Jesus says God is as incapable of creating the perishable as the ego is incapable of creating the eternal. The ego has no idea what eternity is. And yet, its world of separation, its projected world of linear time and separation is the big trick to keep us from knowing who we are as a pure spiritual being, a being of light. So in this movie, we will have an opportunity to get a pretty good view of a lot of messages that are going on with each scene. And our main character is Violet. She's a young woman living in Los Angeles, living and working in Hollywood. She works for a company that makes films, makes video games. She has interactions with Hollywood executives, with all manner of people, writers, producers, directors, because she's in the filmmaking business of Hollywood. And this morning when I was praying, Jesus was just telling me, he said, now you meet every Saturday to watch a movie, and now you're watching a movie about a movie maker in a town where movies are made, and you're going to get more of the overall picture of all the thoughts and emotions that go on in terms of this perceptual world of time and space. But in the end, he said, he just was laughing and saying, all I really want you to see is that this world is a movie. And I want you to learn not to take this movie serious. That's all. It's very, very simple. I mean, in the professional movie making business, there's actors and actresses. There's writers, there's producers, there's directors, there's those behind the scenes that handle the grip. There are makeup and hairdressers, there's casting directors, there's all kinds of things that go on into the making of the movie. And Jesus says, but let's keep it real simple. Your mind, believing in the ego, is the movie maker. You oftentimes complain about the images, but you don't really want to acknowledge that your mind is being used as an image maker. And so it's generating this. Like he says, the secret of salvation is you're doing this to yourself. And if you could realize this, you would stop. You would stop immediately. And that's important, because if we forget the power of our mind, if we forget the part that we play in generating this world, albeit it is from an unconscious mind of guilt, it's from false belief. But when we forget that aspect of it, then it's a temptation to perceive ourselves as a person in the world and victimized by circumstances that are exterior to our personhood. That's the big trick of this world. We've tricked ourselves into believing that the Holy Christ can be mistreated. and that's a pretty big trick. First of all, you have to perceive yourself as a body to pull that trick off. And then you've got to have a whole world that seems to impact that body as if the world's external to your mind. So what I like about this movie today is we're going to really get a good experience, a pretty direct experience of Violet's person, her career, her relationships, her family, and we're also mainly going to get a really good experience of her mind, because her prompts and her repressed desires are going to spring onto the screen as white letters. So in any situation, we can see what is it her intuition is trying to tell her in this situation. Also, we have this very critical and negative voice. In this movie, Justin Theroux is his voice, and his voice is always making commentary to her throughout the whole movie. So this critical ego voice is just constantly going on and on. It doesn't have anything good to say. It's always negative. It's always critical. It's always putting her down. And so that's good that we have that right out front. You know, we don't have to guess by what we're perceiving what she may be thinking. We can hear this voice, this dark voice, throughout the movie. So we have the intuition and the repressed intuitive thoughts in big white letters. We have Justin Theroux. He's the actor who's speaking these very dark, critical thoughts that she has, all of her unworthiness, all of her self-criticism. And then we'll see that she has friends and family that also act out the thoughts. Like you, we all come to see that our thoughts are very much acted out in the perceptual world. So we could say some of our thoughts, they seem to turn into mighty companions. They're our mighty companion thoughts. They're adorable. They just listen patiently when we talk. They hold us when we need to be held. They comfort us when we need to be comforted. And they're delightful. We love our mighty companion thoughts. And sure enough, in Violet, there's going to be some mighty companions showing up for Violet. And thank God for that. Thank you, Holy Spirit, for the symbols that show us that we're moving toward the light. We're waking up to the light of heaven. And then we also have characters that act out our judgmental thoughts, and they basically show us what we believe. If we're not completely aware that we're thinking these thoughts, these characters show up to show us for sure that we are believing in darkness and we have believed in these negative thoughts. They're hard to miss. Sometimes they're just in your face, right in your face. And those are great opportunities for forgiveness. So Violet will have her share. So the themes that you voted on this week that are helping us, taking us into this amazing healing experience, the number one theme that you voted on is called discernment. Discernment, the ego voice versus the Holy Spirit's voice. And as I've traveled around the world for these last 35 years and gone to all these 44 countries, that's probably one of the 5 most asked questions that I've been asked over the years. How do you discern between the ego's voice and the Holy Spirit's voice? It's kind of like saying, how do you discern between the wrong mind and the right mind? The mind that's defending against the light and the mind that is aligned with the light. So this movie is an amazing movie to help us get that discernment sharper and clearer than ever. Some of you who are part of our Movie Watchers Guide to Enlightenment, or mwge.org, you know that occasionally we have movies in there that are multimedia in the sense that they're very audiovisual experiences where you can hear the thoughts of some of the characters. Probably Guy Ritchie's movie Revolver is one of the most famous ones we have in our collection, because not only do you hear all the dark thoughts and the fear thoughts acted out in the characters, but you can hear inside of Jake Green, who's the main character, you can hear inside his mind. You can hear all his ego thoughts, and you can hear his Holy Spirit guidance thoughts. So that's what makes Revolver such an amazing self-realization movie, is because the main character, you can hear the thoughts, and it helps you discern better between the ego's voice and the Holy Spirit's voice. It's really great when we have a movie like that. Another one that's a little more recent we had was called Chaos Walking, in which the main character, you could hear his thoughts all the way through the movie. In fact, in that movie, Chaos Walking, you could hear the thoughts of all the men. And basically the women could hear the thoughts of all the men. That can really speed up spiritual awakening. If you hear the thoughts of all the men. And in that sense, it was a couple main characters, a woman and a man, and there was lots of healing that came because you could hear the thoughts. You weren't so tricked and fooled by the appearances. You could actually hear the thoughts. And Jesus is telling us that healing, all healing is, and all health is inner peace. So health doesn't have anything to do with the appearances. It has everything to do with the inner peace. And we could say that what seems to be the projected world really doesn't have any meaning in and of itself. It's just a projection where the meaning is either put on the world by the ego, or the meaning is put on the world by the Holy Spirit. And it's very simple for the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit sees the world as false and as a teaching device for bringing your mind home. It's very simple. But the ego projects all kinds of expectations, all kinds of grievances, all kinds of blame onto that world. And that's why we have to let go of the ego if we're going to be consistently happy, because all we're going to see is reflections of ego judgments. As long as we still value the ego, as long as we still listen to its voice, we will still see the evidence, false evidence appearing real. The acronym FEAR, false evidence appearing real from listening to the voice of fear. Okay, our second poll theme was facing unworthiness and moving through critical self-talk. That was only one vote behind. So these are the top two: discernment between ego's voice and Holy Spirit's voice, and facing unworthiness and moving through critical self-talk. That second theme, that really summarizes the whole spiritual journey. You know, if you can transcend the self-critical talk by just seeing the impossibility of it, you know, it doesn't mean the ego will necessarily just stop on a dime, but it means that your mind will start having a good laugh. Like, oh yeah, okay, oh, you're at it again. Oh my, you've got a real rampage going on today. But there's a lightness with it. There's not a sense of being identified with it. You're not going to conclude anything about your identity based on this stream of critical thoughts. Why would you conclude anything about your holy identity based on these strange thoughts that are like passing through like trains moving through the night? Okay, the third theme is recognizing the Spirit speaking through my brothers. And I think as we keep practicing forgiveness and the clearer we get in our mind, it becomes very easy to hear the Holy Spirit speaking through my brothers and my sisters. Basically, when I'm not putting judgments on them and I'm not determining how they should be or determining their identity based on time and space, then amazingly, they just start speaking softly to you. They start singing to you. They are adorable. Everything, people, animals, trees, butterflies, everything becomes really adorable once we do not put any meaning on it. We start to see everything is really kind of cute when we don't judge it. It's like, oh my gosh, that's just so cute. I woke up this morning and I looked out the kitchen window and the sun was just streaming across on this tree, and a bright red cardinal was just sitting there kind of glowing red on this tree. And that was the first sight that I saw this morning from the kitchen. And it was just this brilliant red bird, like in all of its majesty, shining its bright red right in the sunshine for everyone to see. Definitely for me. It was really great. The next one is letting go of the fear of consequence. That's one way to describe the ego, is the ego is always chirping on about past regrets, past mistakes, what went wrong in the past, and then it's projecting it into fear of consequences in the future. What could happen? And basically the end game of all of this projecting fear onto the future is, we'll see it in this movie, the ego finally comes out and says, you're going to die. And not just die, you're going to die alone. That's like its end game. That's the best it can throw, to scare you. Once you can laugh at that one, then the ego's like, uh-oh, there's nothing else to scare this mind with, because that's going to come in this movie toward the end, where the ego will try to scare Violet. You're going to die alone. It's going to try to really pull out its most scary thought. On top of everything else, it's always aiming towards the end game of loneliness, isolation, and death. And then the last theme we have today is called giving up people-pleasing. I think it helps to remember always that the ego peopled this world. God didn't create this world because nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. So this world of projections is just that. It's just the projection of doubt thoughts. And just as the ego peopled the world with fear and anger, hatred, doubt, the Holy Spirit simply sees it's not true. And once you come into that gentle gaze, gentle perspective of the Holy Spirit, then your light can just shine. It's used to smile, to laugh. It's used to hug. It's just so much an instrument of light when you give it over to the Holy Spirit, because it's always so gentle and so soft with the Holy Spirit. So those are our main themes. And to give you a little bit of background on the movie, so you'll be very tuned in and ready. As I said, it can be quite busy when you have these white words of inner prompts, like repressed desires coming onto the screen. You've got this male voice of criticism coming up for her, and you have the characters speaking to one another. It kind of sets up a visual dissonance where you have an auditory stream of you can hear the ego's voice, you can see the characters, and then you can see some of the prompts, the unconscious repressed prompts that are wanting to come up and wanting to come out for her, but they're not coming out. They're just there because the ego's voice in this movie is so predominant for her. That's why she feels afraid. That's why she feels anxious. That's why she feels not sure of herself. She feels like she's on shaky ground because of this. But for us, we get to see the whole range of things going on in consciousness. And I think that's helpful because many of us can relate to that, where we're starting to react and respond as we think we should respond instead of as we actually feel. You know, that's what this world is. It's a world of acting. And I did look up acting in the dictionary one time. I looked up act, and it said to impersonate. And I thought, oh, that's it. We oftentimes play a part or a role based on what we believe others want to see or want to hear, or we base it on what we believe we should do. And Henry David Thoreau, the mystic that lived up in New England, he said one time, most men live lives of quiet desperation. I think this quiet desperation is coming in is because there's an act going on, and we're not really completely convinced by the act. We feel like we have to put on a mask with certain people, with certain situations. We have to act appropriate. And this unconscious voice is basically telling us in every situation how to dress, how to speak, what to say, what to do. And it's no wonder we feel confused when there's this unconscious mind that's feeding us the lines. So we may think some very loving and positive thoughts, but the words that can come out of our mouths can seem more like a reaction. And the reaction is more, it's just based on the past. We have a solid belief in the past, and then these thoughts and actions flow from that. It doesn't have to be that way. Of course, that's very confusing, and it can be much more simple than that when we start to tune into the inner voice and we start to feel confident. We start to feel a sense of integrity in our mind, where everything we think and say and do and feel and speak becomes congruent. It all starts to line up when we start to follow Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Everything lines up. So we feel connected. We feel whole. We feel like we're not playing a part. When somebody looks at us and they say, well, you really should do this, we have something inside of us that's just kind of smiling because we're not into shoulds and ought tos anymore. we're like smiling on the inside going, oh, okay, you think I should do this. Oh, very interesting. That's very interesting. It's not a motivating factor anymore because we're motivated by the Spirit. We're motivated by joy. We're motivated by happiness and love. We're not motivated by that fear. And I think you'll see in this movie that's the direction slowly that the main character, Violet, is moving in that direction. I like that she works in the movie industry because everything in this world is a movie, and really we have to change our thinking. We have to change the tune of our thinking in order to come into alignment with the Spirit. And in order to do that, we do have to get in touch with our belief system. And everyone knows from studying the Course that the ego is mostly unconscious. So there's this unconscious belief system that Jesus says it's the dream you dream in secret. And then the world that we perceive through the five senses is the dream that was given away, as if it's happening to us. So every day when we say, oh, what's happening today, or we check the news, we're just basically checking on whatever the unconscious mind has projected. And we call it news, but it's really old. It's just an old script that keeps playing out and playing out. And we only are disturbed by it when we give it reality. When we let go of believing that this script has meaning, then suddenly we are intuitively guided and everything works out beautifully. Some of you know that I've talked about there seems to be everything in time and space is simultaneous, but the script that you perceive that you're watching is just one tiny aspect of many scripts will say they're going on simultaneously. And you only focus on one particular script because of belief. This beliefs will never conflict in terms of an outcome in the world. Whatever the outcome of whatever you're seeing, perceiving with the five senses is not where the conflict is, but it's in the unconscious mind where you have different beliefs that are different self-identities, different roles, different conflictual thoughts that are clashing in the mind, and then you just see a projected world that's based on that conflict. When you allow the conflict to be healed in your mind by lining up with spirit, then you realize that there is no conflict in yourself or the world, and you're healed. But as long as you believe in the conflict, as long as you believe it's possible to be separate things, then you will see a conflictual world. So this movie is going to go a long way for us in helping us see this. Now, at the very beginning of the movie, there's going to be some pretty grotesque scenes of things dying. It's almost like there's going to be a brief montage of things that seem to be dying, decaying, whether it's animals or things in the world. Basically, it reminds me from a scene also in Mr. Nobody, where Nemo is a scientist, and he's viewing these scenes of everything dying and decaying. That's just symbolic of the unconscious mind. So I like the way that Justine Bateman is bringing all this into the film. She's going to show us little snippets of reflections of the unconscious mind, which is just death, disease, and decay. She's going to show us the everyday world and all the interactions that go on with this 32-year-old filmmaker named Violet. And she's also going to bring in symbols of awakening. One of the symbols that's going to be, it's very bright. It's like moving very swiftly through a very tall wheat field. Some of you might have seen the movie August Rush, where little August is playing in the wheat field and he's swaying his hands, and all the wheat is in the grass is moving to his hands. Or some of you might have seen our classic As It Is in Heaven, the beautiful Swedish film that Kai Pollak put together. And then there's a beautiful scene where at the beginning of the movie, the child seems to be beat up by the bullies in this wheat field, this field of tall grain. And then in the end, he lifts the child up, and it's like the resurrection, like he's transcending it. In this movie, we get to see some of these flashes of moving through like a wheat field very quickly. And to me, I think it's just a symbol of the freedom of the mind, when you can move past the wheat and the tares, and you can move swiftly to the light. These are very bright scenes. Also, we're going to see scenes from Violet's childhood. When Violet was a little girl, she was spunky and she was happy, and she loved to put on her little cape, her little Wonder Woman cape, and hop on her little bicycle and race riding her bicycle through the sunshine. And she had her moments of freedom and happiness that were very strong when she was a child. And we're going to see some scenes where we'll see those images projected onto the wall during the movie. Just this happy young Violet there riding her bicycle in the sunshine, very, very happy, very, very free. Also, there's a lot of symbology in this movie. For the little girl, Violet, she's got a little bracelet that she wears on her wrist, and it's got a little, like a little dove. I noticed watching the movie this time, there's her little Holy Spirit bracelet. Even as a little girl, she's got it when she's riding her bike. You'll see this little bracelet on her arm. And then when she's a grown woman, she's got a Holy Spirit necklace, a gold necklace with the Holy Spirit right there in the middle. So the Holy Spirit is with her her whole life. And I love how Justine has put all these symbols into the movie. She's really packing it full of all these symbols so that we can come to a greater discernment. I think also as we go through the movie, you're going to start to see that she's really having to develop her own faith, and she's really having to come to a change of mind and a change of heart about the nature of the world. In the movie, there's a friend of hers, I think the woman who plays her best friend, that she is the name of Leela, Lila. And some of you know from Eastern teachings, Leela is the theater, or the theater of this world. It's like a play. So she's the character that will turn into one of the main mighty companions that will reflect, oh, no, you don't have to listen to that committee that's meeting in your mind, that critical committee. And you actually can just learn to see that it's a lie, it's false. And Leela is one of the first ones in the movie to really reflect back to Violet that you don't have to listen to that committee, because I think Violet it feels like that's the only voice that she's known. It's so predominant in her mind that she needs witnesses. So she doesn't have like spiritual teachers in this movie. It's just slowly drawing forth witnesses based on her change of mind, her change of consciousness. And I think that's the way it goes for most everyone. Most everyone, it's a slowly evolving discernment of getting more and more connected to the light, more and more in alignment with the spirit, and feeling more relaxed and confident based on that alignment. It's not always based on some avatar or some person or guru in your life. It's actually this slowly evolving awareness of feeling better about yourself and more connected and more congruent, more holistic in your mindset. So I hope you enjoy this movie. I feel it's a treat when we have movies like this, because we really get to really take in all aspects of the spiritual awakening. And mental health is our happiness, it's our peace. And we have to actually go through a progression as we train our minds to this alignment. And definitely we can see Violet is going through mind training. She's definitely going through mind training. And it's like we're right with her in this movie. So enjoy the movie. And I will pop in from time to time. And I think you're in for a great treat. This is one of the rare kind of movies that come along that let us get into the character's mindset. And that is a precious thing indeed, precious symbol. Okay. Okay. Well, that is a good example of how this movie is going to go. We see her, she's the head of production in her company, but a couple of her team members just are very chummy with her, and they're always trying to get something from her. And she basically doesn't ever speak what she's thinking because she's afraid of what it could mean to her, being labeled something, fear of future consequences. So she just goes quiet, and she just listens to that inner voice that says, be nice. And it's always telling her to just isolate, shut down until the whole color of the whole scene starts to turn red. It's a very good use of colors and the scenes to show the shutdown. Like she's just shutting down based on this past conditioning and past learning instead of being open. So we're seeing that that's what happens when, you might say, if you have a fear of confrontation and you just, swallow your words, you don't really speak what you're truly feeling inside. You kind of go into defense mode, and the ego is like, isn't that much better now? Alone, isolated, and shut down. So Jesus really is calling us to be authentic and to open up and to find that place of integrity in our mind where everything's in alignment. You can see that already she's having these negative thoughts coming up, like be nice and so on and so forth, from this negative voice. And she's just reaching a point where she's trying to protect herself by keeping it all inside. And that's one of the ways that we feel split off, where we feel we have a persona or a mask that has to behave in certain ways. And then we have thoughts and feelings that don't really line up with the persona, where we feel split in our mind, like we're juggling different acts. We have different aspects of ourselves going on, and they're conflicting in our mind. But if we don't show it, we somehow think that will keep us protected. Something terrible could go wrong. The voice inside is always telling us things could go terribly wrong, and we have to keep it together. Very much like in the Revolver movie with Jake Green, where his dark inner voices of the ego are basically telling him how he has to behave, what he has to do, how he has to survive. So it's very much of an ego survival mentality. And you can see that it's an identity, and that until there's a crack or an opening to see it in another way, then it feels very confusing and very suffocating. That's what the movie starts off with. It's like, even though Violet is very competent at her work, even though she's the head of production, even though she's going through some changes in her life, we'll see that she's living with a friend named Red, because her apartment has got some problems and some construction going on, and so does Red's, but she's moved in with a friend. But we can see in her life many things are fluctuating because she's so unsure of herself and so unsure of this kind of this confusion in her mind between her emotions and her feelings and this old conditioning that she's had ever since she was a little girl. So here we go. We've seen the red color come out, and that's going to be a common defense mechanism of avoidance. When things go red, she's just shutting down. She's just trying to shut down the whole situation. And we can recognize that. We've had that in our lives where we felt uncomfortable and we felt like just disconnect in some way. And that's what she's trying to do in those scenarios. Okay. Well, this is starting to show us how the spirit works and how the ego works. I mean, we're hearing the voice of the ego. It's very, very dark, very negative, always putting her down. And we can see that's why the ego made this world of time and space. It made up all the symbols of time and space just so it could use the symbols to protect itself in the unconscious mind. It uses relationships for guilt. We saw when she was going to the ATM to get some money, and there was a delay there, and her ex, Martin, who pulls up with his son, and she was very uncomfortable. She just had thoughts of, I don't want to do this now. It just brought up memories of the past where she had left the apartment that they shared, left the candles burning, the apartment burned, and she just had these memories of guilt around that relationship, even though that was quite a few years ago, many years ago. It was the ego still trying to use relationships to reinforce guilt. And some of the things from back then, the memory of her being called an idiot when the apartment burned, she came out and ended up, calling Martin's son, little boy, an idiot. Couldn't handle it, working with an idiot like that. It's these thoughts from the past just recirculate and recirculate, but they're all part of a self-concept that was made to keep you from knowing who you are. You have to remember that since God didn't create this world, the whole world was invented. The world of time and space was invented by the ego for the sole purpose of keeping you from knowing who you really are. It's like it's self-hatred projected, and that's why the memories seem to just repeat and repeat and repeat, but they're all made for the purpose of reinforcing guilt, reinforcing isolation, separation. So as we look at Violet, she's a very successful and competent head of production for her company, but she has a great hesitancy with her co-workers of even speaking to them as their boss, because she wants to avoid the confrontations, avoid being called a bitch, avoid future consequences that she's sure could happen. And so we can see that in her career, the ego is still running the show with most of her relationships with her boss, Tom, who's in this scene we're watching now, with her co-workers, with Bradley. And also we can see it in her relationships, even though Red has known her since they were 12 years old, and he's very open. He's always there for her to express her feelings, but she has a great ambiguity there. And he's kind of pointing out she's always, ever since she's been young, she's always gone for the executives, because for her, who she dates is so tied into career, and the career is so tied into survival, and it's all entangled in the ego. You see, the ego made up this body identity, and it made up this sense of a lack in the world, which is really a projection of what it is, a belief in lack. And then as long as you use your relationships and your career and everything in the world for survival, for trying to overcome feelings of unworthiness with the ego's self-determined ways of success, success in your career, including dating people that would advance your career, or anything that would advance that self-concept, is actually not helpful at all. It's all part of reinforcing the false self-concept. Meanwhile, she has this beautiful intuitive side in her, like this Fox Run project. Her girlfriend Leela said, "You cared so much about it. You put your own money into that. You did so much. Wasn't Kirk going to direct that?" Oh no. You know, she doesn't really have the faith in her inspirations. And Fox Run is a movie that she just got so excited talking about, because this is a movie that she's kind of pushed away and put onto the back shelf, but it's actually something she really cares about, that's really important to her. So we can start to see that's the encouragement of Lila, is trying to help her not let the committee decide who you date, not let the committee inside decide which films you work on. Why don't you be open to dating somebody that you feel a connection with, that you feel an equality with, that you feel your heart opening with, instead of trying to build this self-concept and date the person that you should be dating to maintain the self-concept. So in one sense, the Spirit is always offering us opportunities. And even that opportunity with Martin was an opportunity to just join in the present. And yet she had so much fear and anxiety and ambiguity around meeting Martin again, because basically of the past, of the guilt that she still feels. Even though Red is saying, you know, when she said, "I was mean," he said, "Well, you know, you can correct that. You can change that. There are ways that we can forgive. There are ways that we can meet our brothers and sisters in the moment and be shown a new way, be shown that our mistakes and our errors, we don't have to hold them against ourselves or against anyone else. We can be free." So little by little, the intuition's trying to pop through here, but we're just seeing it peek its head up a little bit at a time, and she still doesn't have the faith to trust it yet. But this is showing the progression of how much faith it takes, how much persistence it takes when you have these dark feelings and these dark thoughts, and when you're still clinging to memories of the past that really aren't who you really are. They don't determine you. They are not the determiners of the identity, and yet they have to be rinsed away little by little. That's why as many opportunities as it takes are presented to us. So here we go. We're in a meeting now where she just let up her joy around this Fox Run project, and now we're going to see how even her boss is part of this past survival mode, where she's had to make a lot of compromises in her career and in her relationships based on this programming and conditioning from the past that is so dark. You can see how the miracle works. You can see it in motion. You know, she's starting with that time when she had to pull off and go under the underpass and cry and let all the emotions up. But basically, she just came to, you know, I need to change. I want to change. I want to change. I want to change. In her heart, feeling that she needed something to change. And it's being reflected back to her from her best friend Leela, who's basically told her all along that she needs to be open, like maybe to dating Red, her childhood friend. Why don't you do Fox Run? You put so much of your own effort into that. It's your inspiration, it's your joy. Basically, she's cheering her on. And then of course Red basically saying, well, even when she said I was so mean, he said, well, you can change that. What? That's just making space for the miracle for her to contact Martin. She reaches out, contacts him, and he says, oh, the fire was an accident. I'm sorry for being such a puss. I didn't even call you to ask about your arm. Basically, she gets the total reflection from Martin. It's all good. I'm grateful for you. I cared about you. It was such an important relationship. You see, when she took that step to reach out, that's where we have the reinterpretation of our relationships. Because as long as we are following the ego, our relationships are just based on survival of the body. It's just based on the past. And until we open ourselves to this new guidance, then the relationships just continue to reflect past hurt. Like when she took time to call her brother Rick back, and then basically her Rick, her brother, and her aunt, it was just a guilt trip. When was the last time you were back? You have to book a ticket. What about Christmas? It's all about expectations. When relationships are purely based on expectations, what have you done for me lately? What should you do for me to make up for what you didn't do for me in the past? When it doesn't matter whether they're with coworkers at her work or whether with her brother Rick and her aunt. It doesn't matter whether it's with executives. It doesn't matter what the context is. Even with Martin, her ex, when there's an opportunity to reach out and connect anew and be shown the purpose of the relationship by the Holy Spirit, things work out. And when we stay stuck in the past memories and we feel bad about those, then they just tend to repeat over and over and over. So you might say that when she just was in there on that meeting in the coffee shop there, the restaurant, and these three guys walk in, and didn't you like the name? The Phoenix was the first part, like Phoenix Rising, the Phoenix Rising, rising from the ashes. Here's a company that wants to hire her as a production head, and they love her and they love her work. And this is like another symbol of rebirth, where even her thoughts of career can be retranslated by the Holy Spirit. Even her thoughts of relationship can be retranslated. And yes, actually, family. I know sometimes we have believed that, well, your mom is always your mom, your dad is always your dad, your family is always your family. Remember, they just are symbols that the Holy Spirit can use. And in some cases, you have to let them go before they can come back to you as part of a new configuration. In other words, we're all part of the family of God. We're all part of spirit. But until we align with that spirit, we tend to just play out the past over and over and over. And even in the Bible, I know there was the line about the sins of the father are revisited to the third and fourth generations. Ooh, that's spooky. That's very karmic. Where it's just, you're stuck on a wheel, you're stuck on a loop of playing out expectations. So what we're learning from this awakening movie here is that once you make the determination for a change of heart, for a change of mind, once you start to realize that you've been acting based on these past memories, these past thoughts, these past beliefs, and you want to believe that there is another way, even if you don't know what that other way is, even if you don't have a clue what that other way will be, it's there, and it will make itself obvious and be shown. But to the extent that you're playing out a role or sticking to something based on a past belief, that will be a limit in the spiritual journey, because nothing is as it seems in this world. Everything is a reflection of mind, a reflection of consciousness. And it's, the more you start to align and become intuitive, then things can shift in ways that you could not even imagine. But you just start to feel like, as she's saying, I feel more like I'm in my skin. That's her way of saying it's things are starting to feel more natural. And when she doesn't feel in her skin, so to speak, then that's when she feels like she's just acting. She's playing out a part. And as her girlfriend Leela said, you know, maybe you don't want to be playing the part that you've assigned to yourself. We need to start to realize that our mind is dreaming this dream, and if there's parts that we have accepted that just bring repeated guilt to our mind, we have to actually be willing to let go of those parts. We actually have to be willing to say, I'm not going to assign myself those parts anymore. Holy Spirit, you assign the parts. You know I need a gradual awakening. You know I need to still do this through symbols, but you give me the signs and symbols that show me without a doubt that I'm expanding. You know, her girlfriend said, what do you want? And she paused for a minute there, but then she answered very directly to Leela. She said, I want to be free. That's why she keeps seeing that image of on the wall of her riding that bike. And even though the voice is saying, you're never going to get back to that, you'll never get back to that freedom. It's just trying to imprison her in the roles and imprison her in making up a self-concept that she should be doing. She should be dating this executive if she wants to advance in her career. She should be going back to visit her brother and her aunt and her mother, even though she's left them behind, obviously, to follow her career. She's not even living in the same state with them anymore. And we could tell from that early scene when she came home after she rode her bike and she had her little cape on and she was real happy. She left her bike in the driveway and she was kind of skipping along, and then the voice of her mother, you know, calling her a baby. Why aren't you there raking leaves with your friend? I got a call from his mother. You know, this negative voice of her mother that she was raised with. And then the obligation and the duty to somehow have a family. She said she has these intuitions, like, I feel like I don't have a family. We're not talking about just a biological family. Wouldn't you like to have a connection with the people that you live with? Wouldn't you like to have a connection with the people you work with? Wouldn't you like to have a deep soul connection with everyone that you meet based on your purpose that's lighting your life up, and instead of the past? And that's what the Holy Spirit's doing, saying, yes, you can have this connection with everyone. And for her, even in terms of the partnership, she's been lamenting this this relationship where the apartment burned, she damaged her arm, the whole thing went up in flames many years ago with Martin, and now suddenly by following the prompt and going on Facebook and messaging Martin, can you call me? Whoosh, the whole thing has been retranslated in like 2 minutes. That's how long it took the Holy Spirit to retranslate this really dark feeling, this grief around this relationship. In 2 minutes, it's all turned around. You know, it was an accident. Sorry, I didn't call you. You know, you really meant a lot to me. I mean, my gosh, the witnesses that came flooding in. Of course, the ego said, don't do it. Don't. You know, it was, as she's starting to go all red there, it was quite satisfied. But then she clicked on the enter and she went back in and she sent the message because she wanted that to be healed. She did not want to hang on with those feelings anymore. And it just showed how quickly the whole thing got retranslated. Now that whole relationship with Martin is completely retranslated, with him saying at the end, before he hangs up, let's stay in touch. How beautiful. Wow, that is like a 360 degrees turnaround for that relationship. So this is showing us how it works. It's showing us how the miracle works. And then, I think we start to realize, like in the workbook of A Course in Miracles, Jesus says, my happiness and my function are one. He's not telling us that there's going to be a certain outcome in terms of form and appearances that will bring us happiness. He's telling us that our purpose is forgiveness. Our purpose is the miracle. Our purpose is to be in alignment with spirit, and that our happiness comes from that alignment, from that intuitive alignment, not from trying to make the relationships change in some way based on the past. She's been trying to do that for years, and it sounds like with her family, with her coworkers, and even in her relationship with Martin, that the ego was just running the show. She was just following that dark voice in her mind, and then feeling confused and feeling like she really was missing the connection somehow. I don't feel like I have a family. She didn't feel good at her job. She didn't feel good in her memories of Martin and how that relationship ended so dramatically. So here we go. We're starting to really see the light shine through here, and she's doing it all internally. This is an internal shift of mind that she's going through here, and we're seeing the reflections for that. Now the filmmaker is inviting her and Red to come to Ibiza. He's a little surprised. She's a little like, you want both of us? And now we see the Holy Spirit, as soon as she has healed her relationship with Martin, the Holy Spirit wastes no time in introducing this idea of her and Red, which she has not been in favor of, because she's just seen Red as her old childhood friend, her good old friend that's always there for her. And also she's always been dating and pursuing executives for her career, because of her career. When it's tied to survival and it's tied to worthiness, if you believe your worthiness is tied to your career, to what you do for a living, that's a mistaken perception of worthiness. Jesus says, your worth was established by God. Nothing you think or do or say or make can establish your worth, because your worth was established by God. So you see, the spiritual awakening is saying you're spirit. God created you as spirit. And when you seem to believe in the ego and you seem to come into time and space, you are attempting to use externals. Everything in the world, all forms of the world are externals, because the kingdom of heaven is within, because the kingdom of heaven is spirit. because the kingdom of heaven is the I am presence prior to time, not inside of time, prior to time. That we're being called to remember our true identity, which is prior to time, by first of all letting the Holy Spirit use the symbols to remind us of the truth, to remind us that we're loved without any expectations, to remind us that we are not sustained by careers, we are not sustained by jobs, we are not sustained by ego rules or the government or families of the world. Lesson number 50 is reminding us, I am sustained by the love of God. My worth comes from my Creator. My sustenance, my very existence as a spirit, as I am presence, comes all from God. And everything in time and space has been misused by the ego to set up false dependencies on the laws of this world, false dependencies on a false self-concept that God didn't create. So it's so beautiful because Violet is really showing us all of this in action. The Holy Spirit is transforming her perception of career. She now has another company, the Phoenix. They're wanting to hire her. She has another relationship on the horizon that is very different from the friendship that she had perceived. She's in more of a deep, intimate way, deep discussion of feelings, laying everything out, learning to make decisions together, learning to be together in the prayer of happiness, of joy, of freedom. And everything is starting to transform here because she wants it to transform, because in her heart, she feels that she is worthy of what is inside of her, what is given to her. So, and now we're about ready to see that even her project, which was the Fox Run movie that she really cared about, that she loved the most, that she poured her own money, her time, her energy into, and she's pushed it off to the side. Her best friend, Leela, her friend Red, everybody's kind of reminding her about this project, this movie project that is so dear to her heart. And now the Spirit is orchestrating things to say, let's come back to what's important in your heart. Let's come back to your spark. Let's come back to where your confidence is, where your inspiration is. That's all the Spirit is asking us to do, is why not lead an inspired life? Why not live through inspiration instead of fear of consequences, fear of future consequences? So that's the choice that she's making right now. And we can see it happening. It's happening little by little. Oh, whoa. I don't need you. I never needed you. That's how you address the ego. As the ego says, you're going down. That's the way you address the ego. I don't need you. I never needed you. I never really needed to be in charge of the game. Because why? Because the ego set the game up. And my part is to forgive it, or to release it, or to let it go. And as soon as we release trying to control the script based on the past, as soon as we say, you know, I was trying to make it right. I learned so many things. I learned so many skills and abilities, and I did so many workshops, so much education, so many retreats, so many seminars to free myself. And then to have Jesus tell us, You cannot wake yourself. You can allow yourself to be awakened. It's like Jesus is saying, let me orchestrate things for you. I can do so much better than your past efforts. In fact, your past efforts got you nowhere, and you finally realized you didn't need it. You didn't need to figure things out. You didn't need to make a way for you to escape. All you had to do was realize you have no need of this at all. So as soon as she is willing to speak up at work, and she speaks up to two of the people that work under her in production, they're shocked. She just tells them very directly what they need to be focusing on and what they need to be working on. And as soon as she's just willing to, like she told Leela, just to do things differently at work, as soon as she was able to be just strong, confident, and authentic, then comes the situation where her boss, Tom, says, get out. And that was for the good. All things work together for good. Even when you're fired, it's working together. You can say, as you go out the door, thank you, Jesus. Wow, you made that one clear. You got me fired. And then you see the opportunity opening up. She goes to Phoenix Films. They're all smiles. They're opening the champagne. They want her at Phoenix Films. That next assignment, you might say, work assignment, is a given. That's where she can work on projects that she's inspired by, like Fox Run and other inspiring film projects. So this movie is showing us that once we make the decision to open up to God, to open up to Spirit, everything else is handled completely. Absolutely everything. Not by our personal doing, not by our past skills and abilities, not by our personal effort, but just because it's God's will for us to be happy. And I would say that this is the beginning stages of starting to recognize your function. I mean, of course, the function is to be a miracle worker, to forgive, but remember that Jesus uses, and the Holy Spirit uses, everything that the ego made. So, like with Violet, she definitely has a lot of skills in the film industry, a lot of film production skills. She's well connected. She knows people that do funding. She knows people in all aspects of the filming business. And now it's like Jesus saying, let's have some fun. You follow your inspiration, and let's actually see you expand and be happy, letting the Spirit use the skills that the ego developed. You see, the ego made the skills and developed the skills, and then the Holy Spirit says, I'll take them, and let's have some fun. So that's what it means to collaborate. When you're doing it all for the Spirit, then it's everything working together. No one's ahead, no one's behind. Everything is working from that present guidance of joy. And guidance can be shared. Guidance is shared. Nothing else in this world can really be shared, but guidance can be shared. Guidance can be where you look into your brother's eyes, your sister's eyes, and you have that recognition, like, wow, I'm so grateful to be together. I'm so grateful we can be used together in the same awakening, in the same plan. We're on the same page. We're in the same love. We're in the same light. So it's so beautiful, because now we've seen with her career, suddenly things are coming into alignment, not by anything that she's doing, but by her willingness, just her willingness to give it over, to be used. It doesn't have to be some kind of prayer that you say or some kind of ritual you do. Just by your willingness for change of mind, just by your willingness to hand it over, everything comes so naturally and so easily. And we can see that her relationship is transforming, it's deepening with Red. We can see her career is shifting around and coming into alignment with the purpose. And we can see her relationship with Leela is stronger than ever. Even I think it was Keith there at work, you know, he was basically cheering her on. he was waiting for her to connect and really be authentic, and he's just all smiles there. And now here comes the next one. I see Bhavna's watching. Family. You mean the Holy Spirit and Jesus can handle the family too? All we've seen is Rick screaming at her, and all we've seen is their aunt saying, "When are you coming back? When are you coming back?" She you know, saying she's not, she doesn't care, and all these things. So let's watch and see how the Holy Spirit and Jesus are going to handle the family, because as soon as you get the momentum going, then the Holy Spirit has to transfer the training to everything in your life. So let's just see how that goes. You've just told me the last lie, and it means nothing. It's kind of like the elevator scene in the Revolver movie. You know, face your greatest fear. It's like the ego will use anything possible from the past to conjure up guilt, something that you did that you shouldn't have done, or something that you didn't do. You should have done some angle. It will always try to make you feel guilty. And basically its end game is you will die, and you will die alone. That's what it uses to perpetuate the guilt. So when we follow the Spirit, we are asking to know our true self. We are asking to be in a holy relationship. We are asking to see everyone and everything the same, with agape love, with universal love, with unconditional love. But remember, the Holy Spirit, our intuition, knows the way to reach that state of mind. And I can tell you it's letting go of guilt. It's for sure letting go of guilt. There is no other way to approach innocence, divine innocence, except by to release guilt. So what this movie is showing us is that it's truly in the mind where the thoughts are. It's truly the purification having to be in consciousness. And what we're seeking is connection. We're seeking a vibrational connection. And in order to experience that vibrational connection, we literally have to let go of the past. Not just figuratively, but literally. We have to basically let go of every meaning that we have ever given to this world, and every meaning we have given to the past. I know there was a time in my work with the Course where I remember I was really struggling with this issue. I was kind of right at the point that Violet reached there, where Red is having a party and there's a funeral going on simultaneously with the party. And I remember I did this thing where I said, I don't see a way out. I told Jesus, I said, I think I'm stuck. I think I've reached an impossible situation here. And he basically told me, he said, well, let's play a card game. And I said, what? this is serious, and you want to play a card game. And he said, no, yes, let's play a card game. 52 card pickup. So he said, you just get a deck of cards and you put them out all over the floor on the carpet. And so I did. I put the cards out all on the floor. And he said, these are all your relationships. These cards, 52 cards, represent all your relationships. And I said, okay, what next? And he said, well, the problem is you dealt the deck. You came into time and space, and the ego was the dealer. That was the problem. He said, now go scoop up all those cards and you give me the deck. You give me the entire deck, because the problem wasn't the cards, it was the dealer. It was who dealt the cards that was the problem. So I gave him all the cards back, except I did keep, of course, I kept my grandmother in my front pocket, because there was no need for her to be touched in that this new dealing. But he said, no, you give me grandma too. Don't try to hide any of the deck from me, because I have to re-deal the deck. I will bring them back. Some of them will come back and some of them won't, but you will know by the joy in your heart that I am doing the dealing, Jesus said. So this is the part that is probably the biggest challenge in the spiritual journey, is when you really see that you literally have to let go of the past, and you have to let spirit bring you the witnesses, because you're not going to experience innocence if you still try to hold on and be the dealer personally. It just doesn't work that way. So here we go. We're on the final stages with Violet, and she's really taken off here. It's starting to get clearer and clearer that it's our purpose that is the most important thing. That's right. We have been given a calling, and we're starting to realize that our peace and our happiness and joy come from answering the calling. We have a divine calling to answer, and we answer it moment by moment. It's not something that it's in a package deal where you get to foresee what it's going to be in the future. You get it bit by bit, piece by piece, moment by moment. And it's part of our vibrational connection. It's healing our perception of the world. It's not trying to heal the pieces of our perception. It's trying to help us see the world in a holistic way, to see the big picture. We had it too small. We were trying to tinker around with the parts and try to find the right formula, how the pieces went together. We were playing jigsaw puzzle, and Jesus was saying, no, you're not going to solve this as a jigsaw puzzle, because the problem is not in the pieces. The problem is in your perception of the pieces. And that's where the struggle comes in. So there's lots of workbook lessons that really address this. I always was drawn to lessons 79 and 80 in the workbook of A Course in Miracles. Let me recognize the problem so it can be solved is lesson 79. And then let me recognize my problems have been solved, already solved. They're already solved, but I can't accept the correction if I misdefine the problem. So you can see, we really saw that in this movie. Violet was struggling with her family relationships, with her relationships at work. She was struggling with relationships with these executives. She was, in her mind, she was struggling with this memory of Martin and this unresolved feeling. And at the end, the ego was trying to use all of that and saying, yeah, you've had this pit in your stomach. You've had this dark gut feeling of wrongness. And it's basically trying to say that it's going to be with her, that she won't be able to ever escape from it. And if we simply relied on using the past, there is no way out from attempting to use the past, because the past is not where the solution is. So I think I just feel such gratitude for a movie like this, because it's showing us piece by piece, step by step, that if we are willing to have a change of heart and a change of mind, that everything will be done for us. Everything will be orchestrated for us with our desire for that change. And I think the turning point for me was in the movie when she was pulled over under that underpass, and she just, the white lines from her intuition were just coming across, you know, I need to change, I need to change, I want to change, was basically 5 times, I think it was, I want to change, 5 times, just covered the entire screen of the dark scene of the movie there. And to me, that's the key. That's the total key to everything. When we really realize we want to change in a very deep way, we are saying, I want to let the past go. I will not give any meaning to these past memories and these past images. It's like saying, show me the way. Just show the way now. I have to go all the way with this. I need to see the world in a completely new way, completely different way. So, wow, bravo to Justine Bateman. She pulled it all together. Actress, writer, director, producer. She just prayed in her heart, and what came forth was, I think this was her Fox Run movie. she did her own Fox Run, her movie in her heart that she had to make for the good of everyone, that was not really, didn't make a statement against anything or for anything. It just showed us the process of healing throughout the whole movie. Ooh, very unique one. Was very unique. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. And coming up, there's lots of interactions, because I'm sure certain parts of the movie touched you very deeply, or maybe even triggered a few things. But in the spirit of this movie, I hope you use the breakout rooms today to talk about what impacted you, and speak whatever is on your heart to speak. Don't hold back. Don't let that voice that tries to stop you from sharing stop you at all. Just let it shine for everybody. Let it pour out. No holds bar. Oh, there's Jason. He's got a heart for us. Beautiful. So thank you all. Many blessings.